We will be paid.
Good luck.
I don't know how to go live on Facebook. I did it once. Thank you for being here. This is Calico Vargas, MSW Field Coordinator for CSU Pueblo Social Work Department. And today we are going to be talking about veterans, and we're very grateful to have these people before us who have served in the military for our nation. And I'm going to start off by just letting them introduce themselves and kind of give some background. And they're definitely going to be the experts on the topic tonight. So hopefully we'll have some really good conversation here. Who would like to go first?
We'll just go around the room. I'll go first. I'm Al Sarge Raditz. I am from Ohio. I'm a Marine veteran. I served from the years 1990 through 1996, with time served out of 29 Palms, California, and Marine Corps Base, Hawaii. Right in the middle of that, I did 6 months in Somalia for Operation Restore Hope. I'm a 21-year employee of Progressive Insurance in the IT department. I retired there 3 years ago. And for the past going on 13 years now, I've been the CEO of a charity here called the Sub-Zero Mission, in which we collect coats, hats, boots, gloves, and sleeping bags. And we go out at night and we find people that do not make it into the shelters. 1 in 5 of them in our area are veterans. And when we find the veterans, we tag the spot, and then we find a way to get that veteran back in touch with either the VA or one of the local housing authorities, extended housing, SSVA, or other places that might be able to get them off the streets permanently. The end.
So I guess I'll go next. I'm Professor McFadden. I'm the MSW Program Coordinator. 31 years in the military. I did 10 years on active duty, so from 82 to 92, and was stationed all over the United States during that time. Spent time at Bragg, jumping out of airplanes, spent time at Fort Lewis, went to Germany, and then got to Fort Drum and said, that's it. The cold weather at Drum kind of did me in, but then I stayed there for 21 years while I was in the National Guard. And in that time, I served down in New York City after 9/11. I was there for a year. One of the units that I worked with was the Fighting 69th. And when they got their orders for Iraq, they gave me a call and said, hey, you're joining us. And actually last night, I'm talking to you from Myrtle Beach. Last night, I got to meet up with 2 of my buddies from New York in Myrtle Beach. I had to come all the way here to be able to hang out. And it's been like 16 years since we've seen each other. So that was a real treat. Nancy?
Well, mine's pretty a simple background of, let me see here. I got to start out with family. Proud daughter of a Korean War vet who was a POW as well as a Vietnam vet. And from that, I served, wanting to emulate him. I served for first enlistment at Walter Reed from 86 to 91 after the Gulf War. And then, let me see here, my husband and I met in the military. We're one of those marriages, and 33 years we celebrated this year. He actually served two different times, the Gulf War era, and then after 9/11, he re-enlisted and served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, Army as well. And I also have a son who served 6 years. Let me think here. LCSW specialized in trauma, helping our combat veterans as well as military sector trauma. And I also provide grief counseling for vets as well as family members and family members who experienced a loss from an active duty soldier too. Can't think of anything else. That's
My name is John Berens. I was in the Air Force from 1985 to 1994. Did a tour of duty, well, deployed for Desert Storm. Was over there for a while, came back. Got out a couple of years after that. Bounced around in a couple different jobs, and somebody said, "Hey, you talk to people good. Maybe you ought to do this for a living." So I said, "Okay," and I went and got a degree, and now I work with her doing providing counseling for veterans with PTSD, grief counseling, all that stuff. That's pretty much what I do and have done.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for your service and for what you're doing currently as well. Sarge, would you like to talk a little bit? You're coming to us from Ohio, and vets have needs, across the country, but would you speak a little bit to how you help the veterans in your area?
Sure. So again, 1 in 5 of the people we find are veterans. We cover an area in what we call our normal footprint that goes from an area called Ashtabula, Ohio to Lorain. And it's about a 80-mile long stretch along Lake Erie here on our north coast. And then we also travel to Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Columbus. We go down to Dayton, and then we do a trip up through Michigan in the middle of the season to Lansing, Detroit, and then the year before COVID kind of shrunk our mission footprint, we had made it into Chicago. With this year ramping up, we plan to do the same thing, but also include Indianapolis, Indiana, who we have heard there's a pretty good homeless population there. In our local footprint, we have a lot of the contacts that we need. We know most of the people that work in the Cleveland area VA. We know most of the people that work in the Catholic Charities and whatnot out of Ashtabula. So we have a lot of resources available to us locally. We don't do as well when we find the veterans when we're on those out-of-state trips, only because we're not based out of there and we lack the ability. We learned very early on that part of the frustrations that we were finding with the veterans that were being found in the woods were not that they were so much unaware of the programs that they rated, because they have an awareness, but most of the time they had given up on the VA. It's a large bureaucracy, and for them it was hard for them to make appointments and follow up. And at some point, that kind of dropped off their list of things that they wanted to deal with. So a lot of times we're counseling them back to, hey, let's give the VA another chance. But on the other side of that, we also, gained a little bit of frustration with the VA ourselves, being that most of the guys in my team are veterans themselves. We've all had varying experiences. I happen to have had very good experiences with the VA, as some other people do. So we're able sometimes to tell the good stories about things that we found, but where we did see a little bit of the bureaucracy is we find somebody in the woods, say, somewhere on the, south side of Cleveland. We reach out the next day to SSVA, so that we can, talk to them about trying to get this person off of the street, or, possibly, get some kind of voucher and whatnot. And then we try to get in touch with, the people from the VA, because SSVA is looking for, verifications and whatnot for finding out, when they were in the military, did they get honorable discharges and whatnot. Naturally, if you're living out in the woods or under a bridge, you don't have your DD 214, which for any of us here is, no problem whatsoever. But if you don't have a home address and everything, it's a mountain for you to overcome. So we do things like, we set our headquarters up to be in shelter status, and in certain situations we were allowing them to use our address so that they could, get their paperwork mailed to us. And then we quickly found out that apparently there's election issues that occur when you allow people to use your shelter as an address. Apparently they're allowed to vote from there, and it tips elections and whatnot. And so we don't do that as much anymore. But we do try to find ways that, we can work and help them get the paperwork that they need. And then, we just, kind of stay on to people. We have much better relationships now than say 5 years ago. But 5 years ago, we were running into that same bureaucracy. So we would try to get the VA person together with a person who was under the bridge. Maybe they had an Obama phone. Sometimes those things are charged, sometimes they're not. And so we had a hard time getting in touch with them. And then we also had a hard time coordinating with the VA people because, they're creatures of routine like most of us. And so they come in the morning, they, check in at their desk, they check their emails, they go grab a cup of coffee, they have some, conversation about how lousy the Steelers are, or something like that. Sorry, guys, I couldn't resist. They get back to their desk, they follow up with us probably that afternoon. So now we've burned one day setting up something for them the next day if they don't have any meetings. The next day they have kind of the same routine, but now they've decided that they are going to come out and see us, maybe help us go out and find this person again. They got to check out a car from the motor pool. We see them around 2 o'clock. Maybe we had contact with it. So what we started doing was we re-equipped our bus so that we could fold our seats up in there, get some equipment inside the bus, like tables and whatnot. We set them up so that, we can network, from the bus. And what we'll do now is we'll pick up the person from the VA, and then we'll let the person know that the person that's homeless know that we're going to be showing up somewhere nearby them, wherever we can set that bus down in a parking lot, and we're going to have a bag of cheeseburgers. And a bag of cheeseburgers proves with a homeless person to be a very valuable carrot to dangle in front of them, for lack of a better word. It gives them some incentive to come up and meet us. Now we've got the person on the bus, we've got our computers on the bus, and we get them logged in for the programs that we have. I also have a veteran coordinator and 2 people that help him. They work the phones all day long. And so we're getting much better throughput now than say 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So it's all a learning process. But if I were to go to say Lansing, Michigan and whatnot, I don't always know who the local contact is. If I knew who the local contact was, they change jobs, people move around in their occupations and whatnot. Now I'm learning a new person. We're there for a weekend. We find 3 veterans. We're not always sure, if they followed up with them or if they ever made it off the street. So, that part is still a struggle for us.
And I just want to say, one of the things that Sarge mentioned was about a DD 214. And if you haven't been in the service, that DD 214, when you get done, that's as important to any of us as a social security number, or a driver's license, a birth certificate. That is typically even more important to us than anything, because that can determine the benefits that we can get through the VA.
All right, so then Nancy, you guys are the VA here in Colorado, right? Part of that?
We're
part of the VA.
Part of the VA.
Well, we fall under the VA and get our funding through the VA. Other than that, we're kind of like we're separated from the VA.
Just like there are 5 different 6 different branches of the military now. So there are different branches of the VA. And so the readjustment counseling services is one of those branches. One of those, would it be department?
Yeah,
Branch?
well,
Yeah.
no, we're a service,
Yeah.
we're a service of the Department of VA.
Yep. And so our focus is, I apologize for the background. I thought I had closed the lines well enough, but you can see that we're set up more almost like a private, almost like a private practice or non-clinical setting. So that all of our veterans that come in, it's a different, I guess in some ways, a different approach. And where I really like Sarge, I worked with HUD-VASH for about 2.5 years.
Love them.
And totally get what everything you're talking about. And here I can say proudly that we have the flexibility to be able to provide the support that our vets need. And I use that word flexibility very well, you know, because there are red tapes. There's here, you know, we're in charge of scheduling our own appointments, which is because they're not half an hour. We're not, sometimes they're not even 1 hour. Sometimes they're an hour and a half or even 2 hours. Whatever it takes to be able to go ahead and help our veterans, regardless of the circumstances. Our policy here is that every vet that walks in will be seen. If all of us are busy at that moment, they are welcome to wait and we will go and fit them in. And I'm very proud of our team and where I can confidently say that that does happen very often. And Dan knows that firsthand, huh? You've seen it.
No, it's great work that you do. And, you know, I hope by mentioning the bureaucracy, you know, knowing that you work at the VA, I hope you didn't, you know, take that the wrong way, you know, but it is a big machine. And when somebody's living outside, you know, I think that they really, you know, struggle with any kind of weight at all. You know, for instance, you know, you mentioned HUD-VASH, you know, we talked about SSVA and some of the other groups that help us. One of the big stumbling blocks that we run into, and it's so frustrating because you know, it gets so cold here, is we find somebody in January, we get them on the radar, we show that they rate, you know, the services and whatnot, and then we run into the housing inspection, which the inspection, you know, it only takes a couple of hours. But it seems like we farm those out to the lowest bidders, and the lowest bidders also, you know, seem to be pretty busy as well. We see those take anywhere from, you know, 14 to 40 days. And, you know, it's frustrating because these folks aren't always in a shelter, and it, you know, it only takes a couple hours to freeze to death. And so it can be very, very frustrating.
One of the things that Sarge mentioned with the bureaucracy piece, like over at the VA, one of the problems that I've encountered even very recently is a lot of services at the VA are affected by the character of discharge.
Mhm.
And here we that's not a huge factor for working with our veterans here. Problem is at the VA it is. And if you have somebody that has under other than honorable conditions, they can't get help at the VA. And we run into that regularly because they come in and they may need, you know, you sit down, you do an assessment and find out where they're at, what's going on with them, and you're working with this person, and you know, you come to the realization that, well, we need to get you in over there so you get, you know, because these guys need a lot of these guys need medication. And, you know, because marijuana doesn't cover the slate of mental health disorders that are out there. So some of these guys need real medications, and they can't get in to get them because of the character of their discharge.
And so that's when the nonprofit organizations such as yours, Sarge, I'm like, yes, so excited because we're able to go ahead and go, hey, it doesn't matter about the discharge. We need to go ahead and help our veterans because there can be so many different circumstances that cause them to have a non-honorable discharge. Okay, and so regardless of their circumstances, they need help. Bottom line. And so my whole aspect, and also probably say that when I worked with HUD-VASH, I thought out of the box to make sure that our vets are taken care of, and that's what it takes. And so I'm so glad, that we're able to go ahead and go, hold on, let's see what's going around, what's available out there in our community, because I refuse to accept no as an answer for our vets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to give an example, because I know we have an audience here, and so maybe people might not understand why someone might have a other than honorable or a dishonorable discharge, but you can still as a veteran want to be compassionate and help them. We found a guy. He was a Gulf War vet. He had served multiple tours in Iraq, and he came home. I'm struggling for the details now, but I think it was his staff sergeant was either fooling around with or trying to fool around with his wife, and there was an altercation, and for lack of a better phrase, he beat the hell out of him. And it's a rank thing, it's a busted down thing, and then once you're busted down, that's you're circling the drain at that point. And whatever happened with him, he circled the drain, and then eventually was worked out, after a year or so of cutting the grass and everything else as a private and being restricted to the barracks and everything else. He was eventually flushed out with another than honorable, and so he didn't rate any services. But that, when you're me or you're somebody from my team or probably one of you guys, I don't care about any of that stuff. I care that there's somebody that's out there that's cold in general. And then when it's somebody who served their country, whether or not they were released from the military under honorable circumstances, doesn't mean that they never served honorably. And that's a hard thing to tell people about that haven't served, in the military at all. You can have, Dan, you said you were in for 31 years, and what if something happened in year 29? That doesn't negate, all the other years. And so again, you really got to pound away. I mean, we became very enamored with a group that we worked with out of Detroit. You guys have probably seen them somewhere along the way. She's actually been on a couple of TV shows. I think she was on either Homeland or maybe Blacklist at one point. They showed her business, but they're called the Empowerment Plan, and they make a coat that turns into a sleeping bag. Has anybody ever seen them or heard of them? Kind of like the Brady Bunch here, so I don't know who can hear me and not, but it's a coat that turns into a sleeping bag that she had patented when she was in college, based on one of the life studies classes that she was in. And her name's Veronica Scott, by the way. And so she, part of the class was to develop a product, put it into production, put it out to a populace, seek feedback, and continue to improve on the product. And one of her first cycles of going out there to seek the feedback on this coat was that we don't just want a coat, I need money and I need a job. And that caused her to think in a different way and dig a little bit deeper down into what the problem was. And now she has what's called the Empowerment Plan. And so those coats are made by the homeless for the homeless. And she'll take people, she doesn't take them directly off the streets. They have to, be referred to her, I think, from the local shelter. But the good thing about her program is that it includes signing on for mental health and alcohol and drug treatment, as part of her program. And then she teaches them, the quilting skill and, some of the other skills involved in making, manufacturing, and distributing a coat like that. And then she works with the companies like Carhartt and GM and Ford and some of the companies that donate to her. And when they reach the end of the cycle with her group, the empowerment plan, they can apply and possibly get a job at one of those other companies, who then signed them on for another, I think, 2-year stint for the continued treatment, which is really, one of the biggest pieces there. And now you've got a person who is reskilled, drug and alcohol free. They're, possibly on the medications that they need to be on. Maybe they're bipolar, or you have some other mental health issue that they're dealing with. And now they've got, 2 or 3 years of, working and learning a skill. And now they have a job, a jingle in their pocket, and a home, which is the real answer to what we're doing. So I've been, trying to find that same thing related to the veterans that we have. I have to start, somewhere, and I'm going to start with the veterans. So I've been working lately with our veteran coordinator, and we're trying to get a pool of employers who are, going to be second chance people, because, some of these guys we find they can be good people found in the woods. But if you're homeless, there's a high likelihood that you're going to have a criminal history. You're either going to have stolen something, or you're going to have been in a fight. We get thrown out of bars, or there's going to be something there. And so you're looking for an employer who not only is going to take that risk with a second chance opportunity, but also has the understanding that maybe this guy's not going to be my A player day 1 or day 30. He may not ever be. He may not ever show up. For example, we tried it. We found a homeless person and his dog, and we had some success for a while. With my team, it's one of those things when you approach the board's not, as ingrained in the business as I am. And when you talk about something as big as an empowerment plan and how much it's going to cost, and partnering with hospitals and the treatment and all that, it's a big thing. And it's almost like when you're planning to expand your family and have a baby, next year is always better. You're always going to make more money next year. Next year is always going to be better. But I happened to meet this guy when I was waiting outside of some place, and I liked him. And I said, what the hell, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do it. So I found a place for him to live with another Marine, a Marine I knew that, lived alone, had a room for rent. So we took care of that. I used we only have 3 part-time employees. I would use those employees to drive him back and forth to, the different places he needed to go. I paid him to help us sort the materials that we were using, and took him out on missions, he and his service dog out on missions and whatnot with us to help find the homeless. And it was very good. We a lot of success until about week 7 or 8, when we had a car that somebody donated a car to him, which, was kind of twofold. It was a great thing, that we had somebody generous enough to donate a car. But once he had that car, there's kind of like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need food, you need shelter, you need safety. And then, once you have those things, you start going outside and up the hierarchy of needs. And so it wasn't very long, we put that jingle in his pocket. He no longer, was looking for, home and safety all day. He wasn't looking for food all day. And so some of the other demons that were hiding in there were reawakened, and we started to see alcohol, hidden around the building. We saw a real change in attitude, and eventually, we had to, have a talk with him. And, I had to be concerned for the people that were working at my place. And so we have that to worry with, but that empowerment, that re-empowerment is huge for us as far as like getting people off of the street permanently. It's a hard thing to work all winter long, to drive away from people every single night and leave them where you found them. It eats at you. It's cold here. And so, we want to do a little bit more. And every year we try to do a little bit more. So that empowerment is the biggest thing. How can we get them off the streets permanently? How can we get them a job and a home and the treatment that they need? And if we can lock those things up, I think we could cure veteran homelessness. Sorry, Calico, I'm kind of dominating your meeting here.
No, I'm loving this conversation, and I'm actually really glad that Katie came in when she did, because she's one of our MSW students and she works at Mount Carmel. And Katie, I think perhaps you can speak to what Sarge was talking about a little bit and what you do. Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I can. No, so we deal with a lot of homeless veterans here as well, and just backtracking a little, some of the things you guys talked about, the fortunate side of being a nonprofit is that we don't have to worry about their discharge characterization. We do, to an extent, that some of our grants come from the VA or come from the state and they put a stipulation on there, but that's also why we apply for a lot of civilian grants where those grant administrators don't care about their military career. We care that they served in the military, but we also a lot of times don't put that stipulation on what their discharge is, because like you said, a lot of times I've seen general discharges, I've seen OTHs, bad conduct, where it's a failure to rehabilitate or use of drugs. And the conversation around that substance abuse is that they were self-medicating because there was a stigma against getting help. So they chose to do it this way and got caught, or it got out of hand. And so, we work with those kind of veterans. In Colorado Springs, we have a couple different programs. So I don't know if they have this in your area in Ohio, but they have the Built for Zero. So it's trying to get to functional zero, and it's ending veteran homelessness. And the idea behind it is honestly to end homelessness across the nation, but to start again, like you did with the veteran population, because it is it's a smaller population. And if we can get it to work with them, we can expand to the general population. But I always refer back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's my favorite in what I do. And it is that housing first. You've got to get shelter over their head. They've got to have some stability in their lives. It can be as easy as getting them a state identification card or a driver's license that sets them on the right track. Bus passes, those sorts of things. And then they're going to focus on getting that job and having more stability. So we definitely have a harder time out here. We do a homeless stand down every year. We see an average of 200 homeless veterans that come through that. And those are homeless veterans everywhere from living on the street, living in a shelter. They could be couch surfing. And again, those are other stipulations the VA puts in place. So we have, and I'm sure, you guys are some of you are familiar with this. We have two organizations here in the city that have the SSVF grant. Again, they have to be literally homeless. And in my personal opinion, if this person is couch surfing or they're paying for their own hotel, that's not permanent housing. So they are homeless, and we need to do what we can to help them. But they don't qualify for that money because that's not considered homelessness by a federal standard. And I'm like, they're shoveling out more money for a hotel than they can afford to pay, and what rent's going to cost them. Or the other side to that is, okay, so because they got this paycheck in and they decided to place their family in hotel, especially during the winter months, rather than get them separated in a shelter or be on the streets cold, we're now penalizing them and not helping them with, become more successful. And so while I work really closely with the SSVF grant, and I would never, say that it's not doing its job. It does great things. It just doesn't work for every veteran.
Yep.
So where we are able to come in then is those veterans that don't qualify because they do make too much money, but they still need the support systems, or they're not considered literally homeless. We're able to pick up on that back end and help provide some of that case management and assistance. I struggle in the colder months. That's when we tend to get veterans through. And one of my biggest struggles is they start to come to us because it is cold outside, but they don't have much of a commitment to a plan because they are completely content. We call them our mountain men. They're completely content living up in the mountains by themselves. They favor that, but it gets cold. So they come down during the winter and they just want to be placed in hotels. And that's where we start to struggle a lot with our homeless population, is placing them in that short term. So we've actually started doing, we're trying to build, but some transitional housing at Mount Carmel. And yes, the idea behind that transitional housing is we're transitioning you into permanent housing. But at the end of the day, that housing is paid for, and if I can have you live in there for a couple months because it's too cold out and you want to go back to the mountain at the end of that, that's up to you. So,
Mhm.
but the struggle is definitely real out there to find the grants that meet their needs. And that's why we've opened our doors and take on so many civilian grants, so that we get to decide who a veteran is. They don't have to have served 180 days. They don't have to have an honorable discharge. So
That's good stuff. What was the, did you call it back to zero?
it's my brain just it's meeting functional zero. I know I said it and now my brain just, when you said
That's
back to
fine.
zero,
Katie, I placed my, my email address inside the chat. If you think of it or anything, and, you know, definitely, you know, we struggle with finding and achieving grants. We do real well with our face-to-face fundraisers.
Mhm.
We do real great if you visit our website. We sell a lot of t-shirts to keep things moving, but we do very, very poorly with achieving grants. So, you know, anything that any of you that are on this call can think of, I put all of my information inside the chat.
Yeah, and I think I want to see. Sorry, stand by. We get a grant, and I don't know if it's specific to Colorado. We get, and it looks like maybe it is, but I'll look into that a little bit more. One of the grants that we do get that is specific to veterans is our Veteran Assistance Grant. And it's a state grant, and there's two different versions of it. There's the Veterans Trust Fund, and then there's the Veterans Assistance Grant, and there's sister grants. And basically it's just based on whether you're a nonprofit or a different kind of, like, maybe you're just a VFW, is what grant you, and then like how big you are, who you're servicing is where that all comes into play. And my grant writer, I'd be more than happy to like team you up with her too, because while I know a lot about our grants, she's the reason we have them. So
I understand. I also have a grant writer.
Yeah.
And half of the things that she's into, I can't track all of it.
Yeah. She finds the grants and she says, I've got a grant and that I think we might qualify for. This is what it does. And then I'm like, yeah, that's a grant we could use if that's what it does. Or no, it's not. And then I sit down and give her like the bulleted information, but she makes it sound really pretty and wins
There
us
you
that
go.
money.
Yeah.
But that Veterans Assistance Grant, well, unfortunately, the one thing with it is it doesn't help those with a bad conduct or a dishonorable, but it will do OTH, general and honorable. What's great about that grant is you write it to your needs. So a lot of our grants are, you know, that the state has are very specific to, this is housing and they've got to be in this income level and this, and this, or it's just for this. That Veterans Assistance Grant, you can do it for car repair. We did it for gift cards and we're able to get grocery and fuel cards. You can do it for hotel stay, rent, mortgage, utility, and you literally can write your budget as loosely as you want. And so I don't know if you guys have that same grant or if you have one like it, but that's something that I can look into.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
And it looks like Nancy has her hand up. I don't know how long it's been there. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You know, I want to give a plug in though, a shout out to the VA program. Honestly, I think that's important to let it be known about some of the programs that those are able to cut through the red tape, through the complicated ways of being approved, right, for treatment, especially with inpatient. There are, my goodness, it is impressive that those are able to go to these extensive programs where they last not just 7 or 10 weeks, but even up to 2 years, where they're able to receive not only mental health support for PTSD, but also substance abuse or military sexual trauma. And then where they're able to go ahead and proceed forward for a work study program that also provides housing first. I personally have worked with veterans where I was able to help them directly in providing that. And I mean, it took some time to help them through the process. You know, sometimes what is needed is someone to believe in them, that they can, right? and reminding them. And sometimes it takes more than just 1 or 2 tries going through these programs. And I know personally of another veteran that we have where they were provided a service animal as well. So I am so grateful that we have programs, Sarge, like yours, and also I'm very familiar with Mount Carmel too, in working with them, and where we're able to have this community of nonprofit organizations and also community volunteers, where for those that have to, or that bit that's being missed, right? Because of their discharge, or that waiting period, wait, or hey, wait for somebody to give them a call. But wait a minute, they're out in the street. Their phone isn't charged, right? They missed the call. The next thing you know, they're dropped. It's those little things that happen is that keeps some veterans from getting support. And we know that. And that's why, for me, as a veteran myself, where I'm just so grateful for programs like these that are out there, and even Volunteer Service of America, even Wounded Warrior Project that we've worked with, and where we can be able to go, okay, guys, this is a team effort. You know, we all have heard about it takes a community to raise a child. I truly believe it takes a community to save a veteran and their family. And I'm so passionate about that. And so I'm so thankful, Katie and Sarge, Dan, the work that you guys, that you've done too, and being able to make sure that there's no veteran that's going to be left behind, right? That's what it's about. And darn it, the red tape is a pain in the neck. And yet there are some, and where that, thank goodness, they're able to get through that red tape. And I've seen some amazing work through the VA, through the people that work in the VA that provides that help, that rehabilitation for them. So I want to put a little plug in for some of the wonderful programs that are within the system.
And I agree with that. So first off, I love that you do the Take a Community, because I tell my staff all the time, it takes a village to raise a veteran. Because that's our big thing around here too, is that, we work with Volunteers of America, Rocky Mountain Human Services here in the Springs there, who have that SSVF grant to help homeless veterans. So again, I know that if I have a homeless veteran who qualifies for HUD-VASH at the VA or qualifies for one of those programs, that is the best program for them. So just because they came through my doors does not make them my veteran. And I don't care about the number at the end of the day. I care that that veteran got services. And so we have partner meetings, and we're wrapped into all these different agencies and organizations, because I want nothing more than to be able to call another agency and say, hey, this is what you guys do best. Take them, and still follow up and make sure that they're getting what they need from them. And I do think there's some great VA programs. Again, there is the red tape, and it is these are the people that fit that niche. And we have to make sure that those are the ones that are getting that help. But at the end of the day, yes, those programs do come in handy. I also think that it's important that organizations like us understand those programs at the VA, because sometimes this client is so frustrated and fed up with the VA and everything they've heard, they're not even trying to get that help to the VA. So they just need somebody, a shoulder to lean on, to say, hey, I know the person that you can talk to at the VA. Let's do this warm handover, not, hey, you need to call this organization. It's me literally saying, sit down, we're going to call this organization, or I'm going to call that person, they're going to call you back. Another thing that you brought up that made me think of this too, for you, Sarge, I don't know if you guys have, a lot of things I go, oh, I think this is nationwide. And I'm like, oh, it might just be a Colorado thing. We have a homeless management system in the state, and if your agency is able to get on that, or an agency that is, any homeless member in the community can be placed in that system. So, and what's great about that is there are alerts. So we had a veteran walk in here the other day. He was in crisis. Same thing. He had a cell phone, but it had been stolen. So he couldn't get a hold of any of his case managers. And when I typed his name into that system, there was an alert that popped up that his VA case manager had been looking for him because they had found housing for him that was like voucher supported housing. So it was free housing, but they couldn't get a hold of him. And I was able to call his case manager with him sitting there and go, he's literally sitting right here. And they moved him into housing the next day.
If
And
that
he was-
system is in Ohio, I haven't stumbled across it yet. Not to say that some of the groups that we work with aren't using that, but I haven't stumbled across it yet. That sounds fantastic. Please include that information for me as well.
Just send you a list of things. Don't worry.
Absolutely. Anything, and that goes to, every window that's on here. You too, Dan, you sit very still. Any of you, please, my information's in there. If I said anything that triggered any thought, I'll run down any lead I have or put somebody on my team for it, just to, make us have a better process, for the upcoming winter.
You guys do have it in Ohio, so I will I'll send you the link for it. As an agency, so depending on, like, not every nonprofit can just be a part of it. There's training and all of that, and then you have to
Sure.
be vetted into it because, again, you're being given access to a lot of personal information on these
Sure.
folks. But that's not to say that you wouldn't be able to find out who in your area does have access to that system and plug into them and have
Absolutely.
them help you work through that.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, it takes a village. You guys were using that analogy, and I always I liken it to the French Resistance. One guy's got an apple cart, one guy's got a rifle, one guy's got a kid who can shoot, and we just all get it together and do whatever it can to get that mission done. So meetings like this, Calico, thank you so much, because I can already see a couple of valuable resources that are going to help.
Yeah, and always, I think you probably put your info in the chat before I logged on, so I can't see anything that was there before I logged on. So if you want to copy paste it back in there, but I can put mine in there as well. And then if you ever have any questions, I'm very familiar with what there is in Colorado, but we have veterans who are like, I'm moving to Georgia, and I have no qualms like going on and digging into whatever Georgia has to offer. So if you ever have questions, I have no issues being like, well, this is what we do here. I wonder if they have it there, and giving a jumping off point.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Maybe
You know,
John and I are down here in the Bubble Vet Center.
Okay.
Just want to let you know where we're located. That way we can try to get in connection with each other too, okay?
Yeah, and I work really closely with our vet center here in the Springs. So
That doesn't surprise me. That's great.
I like that people have mentioned it takes a village, it takes a community. But when you think about the military experience, it really is this brother and sisterhood that it doesn't matter what branch of the service you were in, there's a camaraderie there. And we've got to look out for our own. And that's really, when I talk about my story, the whole reason that I went into social work is, I had some really bad service through the VA, felt like I could do a better job than the counselor I had. And when I went into school, Dr. Riley Sandoval and John can both tell you, all I wanted to do was go to work for veterans, and even as a professor, I feel like I can impact veterans through the students that I teach. And so it's on me to do a really good job for my students so that they can take that and then they can help out other veterans.
those who can't do, just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time.
You just failed that class.
I know.
Finish it, you were right.
Get him, Katie. He got me with the crayon joke as soon as I joined. I didn't even know his name yet.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right.
You know,
You should try working in an organization like this where it's so my dad was Army 27 years. And so I don't have like I can't, you know, have my own veteran status, but I've got that. And so we've got our COO is a retired colonel. Our director of operations was Air Force. I don't know what his rank was when he got out. He also retired. We have people here from the like every branch possible. And so
right.
things can get a little heated around here sometimes. There's
No, I understand. You said you don't know what his rank was from the Air Force, but you know, if we're a Marine, he's a private. Well, sorry, I interrupted you.
no, you're fine. I was just gonna say one of our clients got us this really pretty set of ornaments last Christmas that were like one for each branch, and you would come in every day and one would be hanging higher than another, and like one would be hanging at the bottom of the tree, and it's real fun stuff happening here.
This is awesome. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm really glad there are people out there with hearts like you guys who are willing to do whatever it takes to help our veterans. And really, my hat just goes off to you. And I'm really appreciative that you were here to talk about this. I would love to talk about more issues and try to make more connections in the future, because I think obviously this is something that happens across the country. And I think this was really beneficial, and I hope it helps everybody that was part of this tonight and ultimately helps more veterans. Is there anything anybody'd like to say as we're getting ready to close up? We have about 5 minutes left.
Well, Calico, I would like to thank you for setting this up. You know, this was great. I didn't know what to expect, and I had a pretty busy day. So I got to tell you, as I was getting closer to, you know, it's almost 8 o'clock here. I was wishing I had gotten a nap sometime before it started. But now that I've been on it and I've been talking to all you, very, very good stuff. I feel like, you know, I've made a couple friends here that I can reach out to and kind of, improve what we're doing here as well. You know, I mean, maybe there's some piece of it that you guys have seen that I haven't. So I really would appreciate a list of, people's emails here, just, so occasionally, if I have a question or a thought, maybe I could just throw it out in an email format, because we can't always get together for a meeting, but I think that would be very helpful.
It's a great idea. We can do that.
Ann, can we go ahead and email that out to you, and then you can share it? Would that be all right?
What was that?
Can we go ahead and email that to you, and then you can go ahead and share that?
Yeah, I'll make sure that it gets to Calico,
Okay.
and then we'll spread share the wealth.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we just created our own village.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just so you all know, I've been trying to get Sarge to bring Sub-Zero mission here to Colorado too.
I volunteered the other day to be the person that takes Mount Carmel to Florida. So I was like, let's expand to Florida. That sounds good.
Right.
We're going there.
That's right. There's a lot of thirsty homeless people too. I could be, back to Florida as well.
So.
Oh, goodness. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for doing what you do. All right, I think I will stop the recording. And again, thank you all for your time and for your commitment and for everything that you're doing out there. It's really appreciated.